Hi, everyone. This is Rich Berliner from Charged Up, and I'm really happy to be here with Amanda Miller from FTI. And Amanda, why don't you introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about the company and what you're doing, and introduce us to FTI.
All right. Hi, I'm Amanda Miller. With FTI. FTI is a electrical contracting company. We've been around for 53 years, and really we've worked really well to diversify our brand into futuristic strategic components. So we have Faith Technologies, which is our kind of core electrical contracting company. We have Entect, which is our solar solutions, kind of that clean energy solution provider. And we have Accelerate, which is our branded manufacturing components. So from there, we are really working on how we can strategically place ourselves in the industry for new technology, new product placement for kind of those electrical needs of a lot of industries, not just EV charging.
So that's really interesting. So my background, Amanda, so you know, is I've spent the greatest part of my adult life in the wireless space. I was there at the dawn of the wireless business. And so one of the things that we've been talking about a lot is the transferable nature of the skills that it takes to do EV charging installation work and all of that. And so, you know, having those electrical contracting skills is really an advantage in doing all kinds of different things from solar to the EVs and wind and those things. So, I mean, I think that's really a smart thing for companies to do is to expand into near neighbor businesses that make sense using the skill sets. Is that kind of how it developed at FTI?
Correct. We started off as a couple of kind of different companies that merged. In 2008 is really when we started branding ourselves as FTI. But through acquisitions and just trying to expand ourselves nationwide, um, we've really created a value structure in safety um, as well as just efficiencies in the industry. Um, that I think have really gone across industries as we work to expand ourselves, right? Is we might be newer to one industry, but really have that backbone history of quality in everything that we do.
You
So,
know, it's smart because having an understanding of the underlying skill sets that it takes to do these things is the only way you can really, get into some near neighbor business and be intelligent and effective in that. So I tip my hat to the company. And look, you're not the only ones doing that, but let's be honest, without the skills to understand what it takes to put an EV charging situation or a solar situation or a wireless tower, I'm sure you've done a ton of in my discussion with Dave Levine, you've done a ton of communications work too, because it all has an underlying set of skills. So I appreciate that, and I think it's wise. So tell me about your view from where you sit. And again, you can express whatever you want to. There's no, prohibitions. We're not looking for anything specific here, but tell me what you see from an industry standpoint about the EV charging business. I'll give you a little background on what I think afterwards, but tell me what you see from the EV charging space.
sure. I think that EV charging, especially for companies, for fleets, it's where the total cost of ownership really makes sense, right? Is if you're able to utilize technology information to understand your fleet, your duty cycle, and get your energy for a cheaper amount, there's different things that you can do from a charging standpoint of, charging at non-peak times, introducing some of the battery storage systems, different solar technologies that you can start really making your energy costs from a fueling standpoint, as well as from your utility standpoint. It makes sense from an industry, a business standpoint. Um, and then as you expand that, right, is you're going to start knowing a little bit more about when you have to do servicing, upkeep of your vehicles, of your fleet, because all of that information is now accessible to you. Um, and it just makes sense from that standpoint. So even though you have some things like government grants going away, I still think that this is a future that people see a value in. It's just maybe the uptime of getting there might be a little bit slower. The incentives to be first to market might be less. But in that 5 to 10 year standpoint, I do think this is where most companies will end up with their fleets.
Well, I agree with you wholeheartedly on total cost of ownership. Maintenance obviously is a big deal, and as an electrical contractor, I'm sure you get maintenance calls for these things. One of the industry issues is uptime, and we know that. But I have a little bit different view of it, just sort of, 50,000 feet.
Yeah.
This is the wireless business 30, 35 years ago. Again, you could tell from the gray hair, I'm an older guy and I've been around a long time. So I started out in the wireless space, and I gave a speech in New York at a conference not too long ago. And I said, this reminds me of the wireless business 35 years ago. Every county had its own carrier. There were, regional carriers and national carriers, and, it all had to be kind of rolled into, now we've gotten to three major carriers, maybe soon to be four. But this business has the smell of chaos on it, and it will eventually congeal into a much more mature business. But at this point, there's no rules, there are no marketing, there's nobody knows who the major players are, whose stuff works, who doesn't. It's all rumors and in the innuendo, as opposed to, kind of the maturing of the business. And so I think it's actually fun to be in the business at this point in time, because there's so many opportunities. And I think that's why we look at ourselves as, the arms dealers. We're not involved in the war. We're just, trying to present information and education to people as a digital media company. And so I think you're right on from where you said about what's going on in the business. And I think, if you take other industries that have matured, I think that's what will happen in the EV space. So tell us about what FTI does in the EV charging space.
Sure.
Got a little bit of background from my conversations with Dave, but tell me more about, what you'd like to have people who watch this know.
So Faith Technologies, FTI, is we do end-to-end service for all of our installations, meaning we do the actual engineering, installation, and service portion of the business. Now, obviously, you can contract us out for a portion of it. However, the end-to-end solution really allows you to take advantage of our knowledge of the industry, meaning where you're talking about, hey, you really don't know who the major players are. You don't know who works with who and what vehicles. Because we do the full process, we have that information from the service side that we're able to consult back with you at the engineering side of, hey, maybe this isn't the best path for you. Maybe the size charger doesn't really fit your duty cycle. Maybe, it doesn't match well with your vehicle. If you see in the industry, a lot of these consulting agencies are coming out of the woodwork because nobody knows who works together. If you go with FTI, because we have that full end-to-end service, we have that understanding of who works together, who works well, and we're trying to sell you a full solution, not just, hey, here's a charger and we hope that it works with what your needs are. It's let's talk about full on what are your needs, what are you trying to accomplish, and we're not trying to upsell you on power that you don't necessarily need for your application.
Well, let's see if we can break that down for the non-technical guy here on this call. So you consult with the customer to figure out needs analysis. That's good. Then you can do the work to install that charging installation, which has been developed together. And then you can provide maintenance and upkeep services to make sure that these things keep working. So I think in any business, if you watch the window companies, doing their advertising, it's no, we don't have a conversation between the manufacturer and the installer saying it's not my problem, it's his problem. I think that's a very wise place to be. So the guess the issue that comes up in the business, and I had this conversation, I won't tell you in any greater detail, but it was sort of a vehicle manufacturing company that was talking about the fact that no matter what the charging station, no matter what the software, no matter what the vehicle itself was, that almost every single time out of the box, you plug it in and it just doesn't work for whatever reason. And so seems to me that's an important aspect to have one neck to choke, one phone call to make, one finger to point in that situation. Is that kind of how you guys view this?
We do, and I agree with you the fact that that is the case with the industry right now is you're not necessarily guaranteed that everything just works symbiotically together, right? There is a standard called OCPP. It's supposed to help with that, but I think it's really early on in the stages of um, getting the full range of applications that people want to use it for. Um, you know, I was actually an engineer on the vehicle side of it, and you come up with new ideas for control systems that, allow you to heat the vehicle while charging, allow you to do different things while charging. Well, you need to make sure that on the backside, whatever charger you're using isn't going to like fault because they're seeing something they're not expecting.
Right.
Um, and from that aspect of it, you just um, one, working with the different suppliers, making sure that they've done full interoperability testing between different components, as well as just having that service history of what are you seeing that works really well, um, gives us kind of that benefit in the industry.
Right. So I understand that from my conversations that you have both a DCFC product, a level 3 charging product, and level 2 products. And I believe you guys are actually manufacturing these things. Am I correct in that? And tell us a little bit about the product line besides just the overall service offerings that you do from design, build, maintain. What's the product offering look like?
Sure. So part of that design, build, maintain, what we're honestly trying to do is a vertical integration, right? Is where do we see the pain points within the industry, especially with installation, especially with how the product is configured for different sites, um, and kind of meeting a large portion of the industry's needs and trying to make a product that fits in and works for the end customer. So right now we only have an L3 version of the product. It's a skidded solution. So what that means is that you have a utility trenched to a location. So you have that minimal trenching, but everything else is above ground,
Hmm.
which allows us to kind of drop in an installation in a day. Depending on your configuration, obviously that can extend for larger fleets, things like that. But we're looking for how can we get you the least amount of site disruption as possible. Everything's pre-assembled in our facilities, meaning that it has a certain amount of testing before it goes out. Meaning that you don't have the site disruption of labor on site. Usually the labor is a little bit cheaper as well, which we can push back to the end customer for that project cost, right? And what it allows you to do is have that very quick turnaround of getting EV charging installed at your site. And that way you're not digging up your current existing structures, and it's very quick, simple installation.
So the one of the things that's important is we're working at a wireless, or excuse me, I should say a communications trade show event in May, because as with the electrical contractors, so many of the people in the wireless space have now moved over to do EV charging, that the Wireless Infrastructure Association asked us to do a seminar. We're doing 3 panels and a luncheon at the Connect X event in May in Chicago. And the reason for that is because the dissemination of information as to what's out there is so important now. Because yes, we know that there are companies that are doing designs for the majors, for the Ionas and the EVgo's, Electrify America, but there's so many companies now that are getting local projects, whether it's the local mall or whether it's the municipal government, municipal town hall or whatever. So they're begging for information on what's out there, and certainly skid mounted, drop and leave kind of EV charging is really important. So we are doing this event in May to try to educate and let people know what's out there. So we'll certainly think about FTI in that setting. But I think the group of people that will attend really want to know about this stuff, because I don't think most people understand that there's a skid mount solution out there for level 3 charging yet. So that's a great thing for us to introduce to everybody. Amanda, anything else you want to add to people who are watching our little podcast here, and anything else they should know about the product or the company, or how let's first talk about how they can reach you. What's the right entry point for people who want to know more about this?
Sure. We do have a website for our product up. So it's faithtechinc.com. And you can go through to the product tab and see the eSkid product. I think just a little bit more on the product itself is we pride ourselves in being configurable and not custom. The couple of other items that are similar to us on the market are very custom, and you have to wait for engineering time, wait for a lot of delays as far as ordering components, long lead time parts. We're trying to, again, to fix some of those pain points and having some of that stuff stocked ready for you. Obviously, if you have a very unique setup, your switchboard might need to be ordered separately, but we're trying to keep certain things stocked so that we can be really agile from a product standpoint. And then if you're talking about a fleet or a really small site, we're trying to give you the benefit of expandability. So if you have 2 chargers, and as long as we're under a certain amperage, say you want a 180 kilowatt charger though, and you have 2 of them, we have the potential of putting 4 off of our switchboard. So say later on you want to expand to 4, you just don't have the funds now, you don't have the fleet, the vehicles for it. You already have the utility ran, you already have the power source at the switchboard ready. Our building blocks will just, set up to give you 2 more chargers with 0 trenching, zero changes really to your product other than taking off an end plate and running a couple cables. The caveat to that is make sure, with the utility and getting approvals for load,
And
having that extra power, but you're not looking to upset your current infrastructure that's already there. You don't have to wait months for the utility to get somebody out there to trench. You just have to get the approval to run the extra power, and you really should be set up for that anyways from the get-go. So it's really the expandability, the ability for you to be agile with your sites, your workspaces. That's what we're really trying to convey, and hopefully the industry is able to adapt to that. So,
well, you mentioned a very important word, and something that I'm a really big nut about: stocked. So in the wireless industry, we are plagued with people cutting cables and taking and selling the copper. So if someone who buys from FTI loses a connector, a cable, stocking parts and boards and cables and things like that is so important in this business. Is that part of the project that you're doing with people, is making sure you have a warehouse that has the parts stocked?
We have we just recently hired a director of aftermarket for us, and we're working on determining what will get stocked from an aftermarket standpoint, as well as an initial manufacturing standpoint, right? So Everything's being considered. I'm not going to say that we have everything at this point, but that is the plan is we have that aftermarket department getting set up so that we are ready to help our servicing crew or anybody who reaches out and needs our service help on the back end.
Well, if you've got the service technicians from your electrical contracting business, and having parts that are stocked is so important in this business. And it sounds like you're certainly going to get to that point very soon. Cool.
Exactly.
Amanda, thank you so much for being here. This has been a great informative session on what's going on with the industry and with FTI. And I thank you for being with us. This is Rich Berliner from Charged Up. I've been here with Amanda Miller today from FTI. Amanda, thank you again. And thanks everybody for watching.
Thank you.